Hey guys, welcome back to the CTC5 restoration project. Alright, after a silly mistake, we are finally back in business and accidentally ordered type N fuses, even though it says type C right on the chassis. I got ordered a bunch. The 3/4, that's the one that's popped, but there's also a 3/10, and that's the one for the flyback. They haven't made this type in years because they're not safe because, well, the metal end is just exposed. You might be wondering, why would they ever make those? Well, at least in the case of this set, those are actually can be used for test points. For example, if you want to see the voltage going to the flyback, you can check the flyback fuse. And for one of the alignment steps, you actually take one of the fuses out, put it back in. So that they make handy test points for testing voltages. But yes, if the set is on and you reach in and you touch those metal fuse tops, you will get shocked. Of course, you really shouldn't be reaching anywhere near this area while the set's on. However, there's also one other thing recently discovered while reading through the instructions. So there is an adjustment you should make to minimize the cathode current on the horizontal output tube. That adjustment is right in between the damper and the horizontal output tube, way down there behind the high voltage box. So while the set is running, you need to reach in here with a long tool and adjust that while either monitoring the voltage. I think you could do it by checking the voltage on that fuse end, or you got to use a gizmo like this that shows you the current going to the horizontal output tube. Anyways, we'll get to that later. Right now, the big question is, will the set work again? Now, I've done a few other things while I was waiting for the fuses to arrive. I reinstalled all the tube shields and made sure all the tubes were snug, or all the shields and all that. And I replaced the 1V2. It turns out that both high voltage rectifiers appear to be the original. Now, I know I have a bunch of 3A3s somewhere, but I haven't found my stash yet. And I just can't bring myself to order some when I know I've squirreled away so many over the years because I had no use for them. Surely I've got some new old stock 3A3s, but for now, that's still the original one in there. Now, as for the shunt regulator, I did dig up some of the newest types that are used, unfortunately. The ones that have the built-in X-ray shielding and the leaded glass and whatnot. I'm pretty sure I've got some new old stock for those. When I find them, I will install that as well. Now, the tuner, I did mount all back up inside there. I had it just kind of hanging out when I last had the set powered up. And finally the knobs, I cleaned them, and I'd been missing the brightness knob. A fellow collector sent me a photo of what it should look like, and I went through my knob stash, and sure enough I found one. So we now have a full set of good knobs. Alright, let's see, does the set work again? Now, when I last had the set powered on, all the tubes were lit up, but we lost power to some of the circuitries when that fuse blew, which killed the high voltage. So let's see what we get now. 4 amp mode. Plug this guy back in. Alright, everything's lighting up. And if you're wondering how I've been making adjustments, well, way back here, I do have a mirror set up on the other side of the room. Okay, yes. Oh, that lovely high voltage crackle. I can see there's an image rolling on the screen. Alright, let's move around to the front and see if we can get that stabilized and get the test pattern back up on the screen. Alright, here we are in front of the set. Let's see what these knobs on there cleaned up. See, now the channel clunker is working. And brightness control now. Alright, so we seem to have totally lost horizontal lock. That would be this control down here, so it was really far out before. Alright. So, big improvement over, so this is the result of the tinkering I did that I didn't get on film right before the fuse popped. So I got brightness up all the way. Let me back that off. Let's see about fine tuning. These are finicky sets. I mean, people warned me about that, and now I see exactly what they mean. Everything affects everything. The brightness, the contrast, the fine tuning. Of course, the 3 dozen controls down here. Alright, so that's vertical hold. That's very straightforward. Just contrast. But considerably better. Let me bring up a different test pattern. Let's see, where's the crosshatch? There we go. Alright, so that's actually better than it was when I left off, but it drifted a little bit, I think. So before, when I left off, right before the fuse popped, I had some really bad bending at the top. It's not as bad now. All right, so there's a few things to this that I've tinkered with so far. So there are some adjustments. Boy, it's so hard to see the labels here, but background and DC, kind of over in this area. And on this side there's some that say SCR at screen. Before, I think I got on film messing with the tilt controls a little bit, which kind of made things do this. But the ones that make the big difference when things were so horribly off are those DC, background, and the screen. So let me get in there and adjust one of them to show you what I mean. Alright, so here, I just tweaked one a little bit, and you can see that they're getting horribly out of alignment. So now we got like a Spartan, or tartan rather, pattern there. If I go back the other way. So this is all I did. I just did this by eye, which honestly is the way you do a bunch of this stuff. Now, in addition to it being a crosshatch, there's a little dot in the center of one of these. So ideally, this would be a pure white grid with a white dot in the center of each square. So the yoke maybe needs to get rotated a little bit. A little bit of twisting up there. Now the real challenge to this is to get it to be uniformly locked in good across it. So you can give you a simple example here. So things kind of look okay there. I know the green is a bit too much, but as we travel from left to right, the blue starts going up. And then it kind of comes back down. And up here, it looks pretty good, but as we come down, the red starts kicking off that way. It's really bad down here. Definitely experience helps. Imagine guys who worked on these regularly came up with a system of their own to go through it. I do have the RCA service manual, which has a rather extensive set of instructions. I could do it, I understand them, but I'm not looking forward to it because some of it involves like monitoring voltage on pins on the CRT while you make adjustments, or removing that fuse and monitoring voltages or currents. Some of it's physical stuff. There are magnets spaced around the perimeter here, And one of the steps is you need to retract the magnets into protective pockets, I think, before you degauss it, something like that. So that's why I was just hoping to do a little bit of eyeballing and get it close enough that looked like something before I go crazy trying to mess with all that stuff. And some of these are coils, some of these are screws, or pots rather. Some of the shafts are recessed, so I'm using a skinny long screwdriver to get in there. Some of them are sort of hollow ends with a slot on it. You can use a little screwdriver like this to get in there. Helped out the bottom there with that tilt. So it was like that, you adjust it, and yeah, it lined up. And then some of them are just pots you can grab and adjust. There's also a blue lateral magnet on the back, and I know that that's messed up. That's the thing. There are also magnets around the neck on the back that need to be adjusted as well. So there's physical stuff, there's mechanical stuff, electrical stuff, and some of it you just do by eye. It's not fun. Some of the later sets we get the little convergence panel, sometimes on a long cable. So this is the more old school way of doing it. Later on they incorporated some semiconductors and got a better type of convergence system. This is not that. This is not that, to put it mildly. And they even say in the alignment instructions some distortion around the edges is acceptable. In other words, like you might just have to accept that you're not going to get it perfect. All right, I played around with the controls a little bit more and worked on the height, the width, the centering. Tried to get the convergence a little better, but one thing that just made a big difference is I've been broadcasting on channel 4. Well, check it out if I changed to channel 3. Considerably better reception. I'm not sure what's up with that. So, convergence definitely getting better. By the way, this set definitely kicks out a lot of heat. It's nice to be doing this in the winter because this room is getting toasty. Let's get back to the standard color bars. I'm curious too about this high voltage rectifier and regulator, because if I go up high with the brightness, I lose focus and things that kind of start to blur. But I've also heard that's an issue with these sets, is because they simplified the high voltage circuit. They don't have a whole lot of headroom. Alrighty, switch to an over-the-air converter box. Are you ready? Oh yeah, look at that glorious sepia tone. That looks worse than I expected. Play with the tint a little bit. Not doing much of anything. Color helps a bit. Let's see about fine-tuning. Alright, up in the contrast helps a bit. So yeah, we got some work to do. But sure, it's color, it's color. Started going through the convergence procedure, or at least portions of it, and something odd started happening after I'd been running the set for a while. Actually, it didn't happen while I was running it on my Sencor PR57 Variac. It didn't start happening, I don't think, until I had started running the set directly off the wall outlet. I did that because the set draws a bit more current than you're supposed to be running through the PR57 for any length of time. And I thought it also might be starving a little bit of current. So I just started plugging it directly into the wall Now, it could just be a coincidence because I've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. I put in a new 3A3, new old stock high voltage rectifier. I swapped out the horizontal output tube, which seemed to give me better width. I've put in a new 6BK4C, which I believe is the type that has leaded glass, which offers some X-ray shielding. But what starts happening after the set warms up for a while is you get a dark bar running through the test pattern, and then the video fades out, and then the screen goes dark, and then it comes back for a minute or two, and it does it again, and again, and again. I made a little short video, and I posted some photos on forums, and even asked Shingo if he had any idea. Alright, set is still running fine. Got my meter on B+, it's 363, which is a little low. It should be 390. And I also noticed when I turned the set on, it peaked a little bit above 450 in it. I was concerned about that because I have 450 volt caps in it. They can take a little bit of excessive voltage for a very brief time, but it's not great. Anyways, so now we wait. Now we wait. And you just got to witness the problem. So it just came back to life. Should fade out again in about a minute. What was interesting is it just came, of course it started happening when I left the room. When I came back, there was still sound as the image faded out, but the sound did cut out briefly. So it's starting to happen. We get this black bar kind of moving through the image a little bit, and the whole thing fades out. Oh, the sound does definitely fade out, but B plus is holding. So actually B plus is going up a bit. I'm thinking because there's less load on it, and now it's back. So what I've also been trying to do, now that it's night I can maybe see better, is there's a tube going out. So my first thought is that, well, the 6CG7 is going out. But maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just a tube in the tuner that's going out, or a video amp. This is inter-carrier sound, so if like one of the IF tubes goes out, you're going to lose both video and sound. So I just turn the lights off so we can look at the tubes. Oh yeah, I'm remembering now, when I had this set up on the workbench, I was having trouble where the sound was terrible. And then I accidentally discovered that if I tightened a screw or pushed in certain areas on the IF board, it came through strong and clear. I wonder if that problem was never fully resolved. Now, of course, the fun of working on these sets is you got something like 22,000 volts plus 400 volts or so on B+, or actually 363. It should be 390, so I'm a little low there. I don't particularly want to reach into the set. So the IF board is, we're looking at it right now. At least they give you this plastic shroud around the CRT, which should protect me. I do have a mirror set up so I can see the screen while I'm poking around. So it just went out. Let's wiggle the IF tubes. Oh, coming back before I had a chance. Kind of a maddening thing to troubleshoot. One of the fun things about working on these sets too is that if I pull the chassis apart at a workbench, of course I don't have it in the cabinet with the CRT hooked up and everything, so I can't really troubleshoot this. And it's intermittent, so I just have to wait for it to come up again, wait for it to come up again, and try something, and try something, and try something. But at least we eliminated B+. So why did I even think it might be B+? Oh, there it goes again. Let's try the tuner this time. So there's the RF tube, here's the mixer tube. Alright. Connector going to the tuner. Nope. Well, the only thing I can do is shut this down and tighten all the screws on the shields. So some of these boards have these metal shields around them and they're held down by screws, and the boards themselves are screwed down. You can see there. So I can go around and tighten all those again. Something else, high voltage regulation is just crap. Non-existent. So with decent viewing brightness, we have about 18,500 volts. If I drop the brightness to where brightness is just about down all the way, goes up to about 19 3/4, almost 20. It's supposed to be 22.5 and stay there as the brightness varies. Now if I go pretty bright, I'm losing focus and it's blooming and all that. Well, there's a good reason for that, because now I'm down to 14,000 if I turn the brightness up. So basically we have no high voltage regulation. Now, in order for that regulator to work, the high voltage output from that rectifier needs to be somewhere around 30,000 volts unloaded, unregulated. And it sort of works like a load balancer. It's supposed to keep it around 22.5. So I think our raw high voltage output is just too low and the regulator's not doing anything. So why is it low? Well, as you saw, our B plus is a little bit low. I did swap out the horizontal output tube, but I'm not 100% certain this is really a new tube. The pins look super clean, but the getter looked a little discolored. You know, I could pop this one back in. This is the one that came with the set. It tests great, but I'm sure it's got some wear on it. It's not an original, but I don't know when it was replaced or how much use it's had. Should probably just go ahead and buy a new one. It should be a new 3A3. I can swap out the 6BK4. Here's the one that was in there. However, I've already done that, and I've already tried two different horizontal output tubes, 2 different high voltage rectifiers, and 2 different shunt regulators, and it behaves about the same with any of them. And also, I've swapped out the focus rectifier. So, a couple things. One, yeah, B plus a little bit low. There's also an efficiency coil, which is ludicrously inaccessible. It's on the other side of the high voltage box, between the horizontal output tube and the damper, way down at the bottom of the chassis. It's an adjustable coil. So you need to get, with the set on, you get in here and get down there and adjust that while monitoring the current draw. Yes, we've got plastic shielding on this, but the high voltage wire is coming out right there. I'm not real crazy about doing that. Yeah, putting the cover back in the high voltage box will provide me some extra level of safety. But I think what I'm going to need to do is make up a long tool, because the kind of tools I typically use is only maybe that long, which means I would really need to get down in there. But adjusting that may get the high voltage up. Yeah. Again, tough thing to test because I don't have it up on the workbench. I can't monitor the voltages on the horizontal output tube, which is on the other side of that box, and it's really hard to get at when the set's together and running. But, well, I seem to have fixed the problem. I started poking around the video amp board, and if I pushed on it in a certain way, the image would come back. I reseated the 2 tubes on that board and loosened up and retightened the 6 mounting screws, and it seems to be okay now. Of course, there's some black and white programming now, so I can't really demonstrate that too much, but something else rather curious has happened. Let's turn the brightness down and check the high voltage. So earlier we had no high voltage regulation. When I turn in fact, every time I've run this set, if I turn the brightness up, it would get blurry and out of focus. So with the brightness down, just under 20,000 volts like we had before. Now I'll turn it up just about all the way. And check the high voltage again. it didn't drop anywhere near as much. We're getting close to 19,000. Now, I've had that blooming problem every time I've powered this set up. I'm wondering, is it just because the set's cold? I let the set sit overnight, it's the next day now, and will that problem creep back? Or did the set magically fix itself? Or did by me tightening down those screws fix some other unrelated problem? Let's see if I get some color programming up. There we go. So I'll let the set run for a while more, but that's kind of curious. So I'm going to leave off here. When we pick up next time, I'm going to pull the chassis out again and make that high voltage modification so we can adjust adjust the high voltage point, which will mean adding a potentiometer. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put it, but I'll ask other guys who have made the mod, where did you actually put the thing? But otherwise, it's working pretty well right now.
To make sure that none of them tried to escape until all four were captured.
That's it for now. Thanks for watching.
We're taking them to their field of